Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Siliconvania from WizKids. Siliconvania is a 2 to 5 player game which players are going to be drafting tiles across 8 rounds of play, placing those tiles into their grid. This is a 4x4, it's a 16 tiles. You'll be taking 2 tiles every single round across those 8 rounds, putting them into here, and then trying to score across a variety of scoring metrics. Basically, it's tile placement with a degree of bidding, a degree of action selection, not really action selection, just bidding. There's no action selection in this game. In any case, in Siliconvania, like I said already, you're playing across 8 rounds of play. Every single round, you're going to select one of your bid cards over here. You're also going to select one of your workers over here, and the combination of those two is going to determine what happens across the course of the round. So for example, let's pretend this first round, I actually like to go, well, I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to play a bid face down over here, and I'm going to choose a worker, and I'm going to choose, I'm going to go with this one over here. I think that makes sense. We're going to go ahead, I don't want to do that one just yet. I'm going to do this one over here. Okay, I'm doing this worker and that card over there. I've selected my cards, and now we're going to go ahead and reveal them. We're going to reveal these cards, and then this tile over here, my silent bid card, is going to determine my priority order of selecting tiles. Meanwhile, my worker over here is going to determine my priority order of which of these workers I get to add back into my hand. And those are all relevant for a second. They have a lot of reasons. Everything here is relevant, but let's start off by going in order, starting off with resolving my silent bid card. My silent bid card over here has a little vampire symbol over here. That little vampire means we get +1 vampire when we play it. Higher numbers sometimes have costs, lower numbers give you extras, but lower numbers give you lower priority order. So I'm going to take my little pink vampire. Why are they pink? An excellent question. I don't know the answer to it. I'm going to take our pink vampire, put it into some ice supply over here. We now have a pink vampire. The other players are going to go ahead and go and select various selections of tiles. This one looks like a good selection. Someone will take that. Someone will also probably take that one, and that leaves these 2 tiles for me to try to choose from. Which bundle of tiles do I want from these over here? You know what? I haven't really gone for animals a lot in this game, so I'm going to go ahead and take this animal park over here and start off that process. You can take your tiles, place them anywhere you want in your grid. I'm going to try to put this somewhere in the center. I feel that's good. And because it has this icon, I'm going to move up this track by 1 over there. I moved up the survival track. The survival track curves around over here, and the innovation track curves around over here. We're going to take this, put it into my park somewhere else. I'm going to put it off into the far distant corner, as far from my blood as possible, which there's a reason for that, but you don't necessarily know what the reason is. My silent bid card is now gone. We go to the next phase, and again, I played a fairly low number. I played a 17. Let's pretend, for the sake of this example, that I'm actually second. Someone else played a 2 or a 1 or whatever it is. And the numbers range from 1 to 70, and there are no duplicates in there. So someone else, the 70 goes ahead and selects, and they're going to go ahead and take, you know what? They actually really want to go for this resident over here because they're going to give you an antiquity, and those are a little hard to get your hands on. So they're going to take the antiquity over here, taking that one. From there, I have the next choice over here. I tend to prefer lower tiles, although this one does like, you know what? I think I'm going to take the noble because of how they score, which you don't understand how that means yet, but you will soon. That noble is going to go into my hand, and then the last player will take this one and it leaves the table over here. But meanwhile, when you resolve your worker card, you also get to do an extra thing. Basically, the worker card, the higher the number, the first choice you have, but the lower the number, you're going to have additional benefits on them. So for example, over here, I get to take a contract right now and 3 innovation. Innovation is going to be moving along this track, 1, 2, 3. I get to recover a silent bid card, which means this card is going to go straight back to my hand and I can use it again, whereas otherwise I would not have been able to. I'm also going to go ahead and grab a contract over here, and that's going to go also into my supply, and that is round 1. We've just played 1 of the 8 rounds of Siliconvania. Let's do another round, and then we'll talk through things. Let's do one more round. We're going to go ahead and take some tiles out. We're filling up new spots on the board. Let's put these down over here. We're going to grab these tiles over here, and put these ones down here, like so. That's going to want to make sure you can see everything there, so I'm going to layer that up over there. And then we're going to have these, and these you can see everything like that, so that's totally fine. We're going to gather our 3 new cards over here, and continue that process going round and round as you go, before we teach you how you actually score and how other things change in round 4. So we have our new cards over here, and now I actually have a reason that I want things. A big part of the way I personally play this game is round 1 I tend to go very low because I don't really care what I get. In subsequent rounds I start caring a lot more because now my base has been established. Now I'm going for parks, and I also want blood, which means I kind of want this tile over here. How badly, I don't necessarily know. There's also a benefit to having the mausoleum. It's why I took the noble. But let's take a look at my cards over here and figure out, you know what, I definitely want that mausoleum. I have 3 nobles. That's going to be very helpful for the mausoleum next to blood tiles over here, or in the mausoleum next to blood tiles. Yep, 3 victory points per mausoleum. So I'm going to want that, which means I am going to go decently high because I don't mind if I got the blood. Let's go decently high. Let's go with a 5. We're going to go with a 5 over here. I'm going to place it face down, place that down along with what dice to choose as my card. Let's place, I do like, nope, this is not useful as much. I'm going to go ahead and take these two out over here. We're going to play these, and we're going to flip them over, and let's pretend that I am indeed going first in the selection of tiles, just because I'm pretending, so why not? We'll take these tiles over here. I'm going to place this next to the blood bank because I want that to score. We'll explain more about that shortly. And the Maul I'll place down here, where it's going to go ahead, and actually the Maul has a reason to go here. I'll place the Maul down here, which means we're going to move up this track again by 1, moving there. And then the second round, other players will take their tiles, and the second round we'll go ahead and take a look at what we got here. At 53, that's a slightly higher number, so I have a little bit more agency or choice. You know what? I think I'll take the Groundskeeper because I do want the additional park points, so I'll take the Groundskeeper. It's a nice medium number, giving me more choice, but also giving me a dog that I can utilize later. That will go into my hand, and then these go away, and these are now gone. That's 2 rounds of playing through Siliconvania. Now, there's a few things to note. The first thing is that, well, let's actually talk a bit more. Let's talk about how you score in the game, and let's talk about that extra thing I want to mention. The way you're going to score in this game is across 8 rounds of play, you're going to be filling your entire grid. 2 tiles per round, 8 rounds, 16 tiles, and then in the game, you're going to get 0 points if you have 1 to 6 different tile types, but if you have all 7 tile types, you get 5 points. To clarify that, not you get 0 period, you get a bonus 5 points if you have 7 different tile types. You're going to get 1 point for every vampire you store in a crypt. Remember that vampire we got earlier? Various tiles, such as this, will give you vampires, and various tiles will give you places to put those vampires. Putting a vampire into a crypt gives you a point per vampire in the crypt, so a bunch of points you'll get that way. You get points for your largest cluster of blood, meaning you look over here, that's a cluster of 2 blood. Had I have this tile over here, that would be a cluster of 5 blood, and if I have this tile over here, well, that's still a cluster of 5 blood. You're going to score a single cluster of blood based on how much blood droplets you have in that cluster. You're going to get 2 points per contract, and a bonus 5 points if you have at least 3 contracts. Then you'll get up to 25 points for having different types of animals. So for example, that card over here that I took, which is over here, that will let me trade that in to be able to gain a hound that can go somewhere on my board. And that hound means I have now 2 types of animals, which means I get 3 points. As you gather different types of animals, up to the 8 different types over there, and there's actually, I believe there's 9 if I'm not mistaken, but as you get more and more animals, you'll be able to get giant chunks of points, otherwise known as 25. 25 is giant chunks of points. In this game, I'd say endgame scoring in this game probably ranges from around 80 to around 110, although I'm sure people can min-max their way towards different things, but that's going to be the way you score animals. Lastly, every single type of tile has a way that it scores, but this one is more nuanced because you don't score that automatically. Rather, you have to play cards to unlock that scoring. Effectively, some of the cards in your hand are using for the bid powers, for the choosing the next card and taking a benefit from it, but some of them are going to go to the side of your board. And when they do so, that unlocks the scoring for the Mausoleum over here. So as I play this card, I'm now getting for that scoring over here, and over here, if I play this card, I'm now getting for that scoring as well. I'm getting to score it twice. Effectively, each up to 3 different cards can score for the same type. So I can have up to 3 nobles and triple down on the Mausoleum scoring. But at that point, the 2 other cards I'll play, because you're going to be playing 5 cards a round total, 5 of the cards that you play are for scoring. So you have to choose at least 2 different scoring types, and you can diversify it however you want, but you're going to be scoring from those as you go through it. And so those cards are going to be played once you start in round 4. Basically, in round 4, you're going to add a step. So round 1, 2, and 3 go the way I said. You play the card over here, you choose your tiles, you resolve this card, take your next card, and then in round 4 and onwards, you start another step where at the end of taking this card, you then play a card down over here. You do not get its benefits from its number, you do not get the benefit from its ability, you are just getting the scoring benefit, and now Mausoleums next to Blood Banks are worth 3 points each. That is going to be happening in rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8, giving you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, giving you 5 different scoring cards that will be in play, and then those are going to score you an additional chunk of points, and they can score you a maximum of 12 points each. Over here, they have a maximum of 12 per card, so if I have 5 Mausoleums next to Blood Banks, it won't help, but 4 Mausoleums will be 3 points each, which will be 4 times 3, which is 12, and I can get 36 points from Nobles alone if I double up on how I build that as I go through it. And that's basically how you play Siliconvania. There's a few other aspects we haven't really talked about. Some of the things that happen on this track. As you move along this track, you're going to get various bonuses whenever you get there. Whenever your markers cross one another, you're going to get a bonus for crossing at a council contract. There's the tile exchange pool, which some cards will reference, allowing you to swap tiles in from outside the board. You have the opportunity to relocate tiles, to swap objectives from your discard or hand in case you need to pivot or adjust to what's happening. Or sometimes you really want to play a card, but also use it for its scoring ability, and that will give you the opportunity to do so. But basically a bunch of powers and abilities and things. There's going to be, we haven't talked about trains. Trains are going to be a thing that you can add train tiles to the edge of your board. As you unlock trains over here, gain a train, gain a train, gain a train, you can put these tiles around the edge of your board, which will give you blood droplets and more crypts. You also have the ability to get city tiles. City tiles are going to be things that you put on the edge of your board, which will give you a tile of that type, but also you can flip it to go ahead and get a scorpion, which is one of the animal types, and then there's going to be antiquities, which are various things you can place over your tile that will give you different benefits that will overlay on the tile. So, for instance, I can add 3 crypts to that tile by placing an antiquity tile down over here, or this I can place over here. Because this tile won't even score because it's in a different set of blood, I can actually flip this tile, get nothing for it, but instead I can go ahead and get 4 points from it instead. So there's different little antiquities you can place onto your board, but that is basically how you play Siliconvania, which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. Rules are fairly easy to get to. It's a fairly short game. It's not overly complicated. There's a lot of kind of things that you won't necessarily fully understand until you dive into it, like this, because the core gameplay loop is incredibly simple. Play a bid card, play a worker card, resolve those, take the tiles and workers you need, and then score for those things. But then you have to learn all the other things. What does it mean to, like, what are the various benefits on this track? What are castles? What are train tiles? What are the antiquities? So there's a bunch of extra stuff that won't fully grok, you won't fully absorb or understand it until you start playing it. But overall, pretty quick to get people up and running in the game. And game time is probably around 30 to 45 minutes, possibly depending on player count as well. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which is the art and presentation in general, with a caveat, we'll get to that. But this is illustrated by the Micho, who I like in general, and I love the cards over here. The cards give a lot of character to something that's outside, not outside, it's within his genre, but I just love, I like the engineer a lot, the noble, the groundskeeper, not quite as much. We have a sales rep over here. This is basically, tech bros meet vampires in Siliconvania over here, but overall, the art, the presentation, I enjoy that. But additionally, I enjoy the scoring management in this game. I like these point optimization puzzles that you have in games, and I very much like it in Siliconvania as well. There's a lot going on as far as how you're going to score points in this game, and you really have to think through. I mean, you can get up to 60 points from your scoring cards alone, but those other 40 plus points can come from other areas, and you can get chunks of points from things if you play it right. You can get a cluster of blood that's going to score you 15 points. You can get a bunch of vampires and crypts. I think I scored 17 points from vampires one game just by having a ton of vampires in crypts. You can go for animals and get a ton of points from animals. 25 points from animals. So there's a bunch of these peripheral points you're picking up, in addition to the fact that you actually have to optimize around your cards. Getting 12 points per card is the hypothetical pipe dream, but you won't guarantee that across all your cards. I don't think there's been a single game where I scored 12 on every card. Usually I can get on at least one card type and then hopefully get 2 or 3 of that type, but then sometimes you'll have a card type that you only score 9 for. There was my last game I played, I had a card that I scored 0 points for. I messed up, I thought I'd be able to swap it out. I scored 0 points for a card, so you're not guaranteed to lock in on those points, and you're trying to balance how you're going to place tiles into your grid, which is, again, a mechanic that's been used a lot, and I like it in many games, and I like it here a lot as well, but the general idea of trying to optimize how you draft the tiles, where you prioritize, the bidding order of trying to figure out when you play your lower or higher numbers, when it's super important to get that exact pairing of tiles, versus when there's 2 or 3 and it's not the worst if you go second, trying to make those decisions around the priority of things, how much you're willing to commit to those things, and then actually going through the process of juggling your points net. That's the core idea of what's happening in Siliconvania, and it's fun. It's my jam. It's the kind of thing that I enjoy in games, and I enjoy it here very much. I like the multiple use employee cards over here, or employee cards, worker cards, whatever you call them over here, but I like the fact that there's 3 different facets on the cards. There's the number, which guarantees your pick. There's the ability, which there's a trade-off. I always like the stronger abilities, but these stronger abilities means I have less agency over drafting the right cards, which translates directly into scoring, which is where you have that other aspect of the scoring. So I like all those aspects of play as you go through it. I enjoy it a lot in terms of the multi-use cards and the things you have to be trying to balance as you go through it. I'll also say that this game does work fairly well at 2 as well. I've played this game at a variety of player counts, and I thought 2 wouldn't work quite as well because of the nature of a bidding mechanism in play, and there's some slight rules changes when you play it at 2, but I thought it would be a little bit less tense, but I still enjoyed it at 2. Now, I do prefer it at higher player counts. I want to be very clear. As much as I think 2 was much better than I thought it would be, I still think that the bidding mechanism, having multiple bids in place and not being able to guarantee things quite as much, adds a degree of tension and also a degree of having a harder time optimizing. I played 2 players once, and I think that game I got 4 of my cards at 12 points, and only one of them I did not get the full 12, and so there's more control over things. At higher player counts, there's a little less control, which does translate into a little bit more fun, because you walk into the next game feeling you can do a little better. Versus my first 2-player game, I felt like I got most of what I needed done in the game. As far as what I don't like, first of all, there's aspects of the art that are confusing to me. While I like the overall aesthetic and art of the game, I mean, I can't say I care about the theme at all. The theme, Siliconvania, Vampire meets Tech Bros, it's weird, it's different, points for being different, but, I mean, I would never buy this off theme alone. I need other things. Now, the Micho's art is a good thing for me to, be pulled in by, but I would never buy this off theme alone. Siliconvania is a little too abstract. It doesn't bother me, it just doesn't pull me in. But I do find the pink vampires confusing. I mean, I guess we're going for just the color scheme here. This is not a big deal over here, but the general aesthetic choices in certain areas. I don't like the pink vampires. I don't like how, like, the train tiles are, like, absent. Like, when you have a train tile, you either put it on the train side, which even that art doesn't look great to begin with, or you place it on the side that has illustrations of what that tile actually does. And that's kind of weak. Similar with the antiquities over here. The antiquities, you have an illustration side, which you can place down over here in some sense, or you can just turn over to whatever it is. And these I get a little bit more why they look so plain. How would you make it match any tile type? You can't really get a perfect fit in there. But I feel certain design decisions just feel like, or the silent bid cards, they feel different. So, like, some areas of the game, like these cards over here, I love them. The back, the front, they look beautiful. The backgrounds of your player boards look beautiful. And then there's certain design decisions that just feel, it feels a bit mismatched. Some things feel beautiful, and some things just feel a drop different, or less enthusiasm or energy given to them. I'm not saying there wasn't enthusiasm, but there's a slight disconnect between certain aspects of the art choice. I'll also say that adjusting cards and tiles around player count is irritating. That's an actual irritation. That's not a small thing. But when you adjust the cards and tiles, basically every single tile and card has a player count that it's ideal for. There's the 2-player count, then there's the 3-player tiles, the 3-player cards, the 4-player tiles, the 4-player cards, and the 5-player tiles, the 5-player cards. That's annoying. I don't like having to constantly tweak things in and out of games based on player count. It's something that can be done, absolutely, but and cards, I'd say, are a little easier. Cards, you can riffle through them, pull them out fairly quickly. Tiles are more work, to the point that generally I'm at the point now where I'll just kind of keep them in a single stack, and then as I draw, if I'm playing a 3-player game, I'll just remove the 4-player tiles as I go through it, but the only problem with that is inevitably I get to the end of the game and I'm like, oops, I have a 4-player tile on my board, we missed one. And so that does happen, but that's not a big deal, it's not the end of the world, but it is an irritation when I feel there's a decent amount of sorting of cards and tiles based on the player count I'm diving into it. That's really all I have there. As far as things I can see others not liking, oh wait, no, that's not true, sorry, one more thing. I find the maximum 12 points per card to be a limitation that takes away some of the creativity of this game, to the point that I house ruled elements of the game already. Basically, every single card maxes in at 12 points. And I already said you don't get the maximum of 12 points all the time. You don't. You have to work, you have to struggle, and some cards will score less. But I find it's a little bit too easy to kind of lock in certain cards being worth 12 points, at least in my experience playing this game, to the point that I've already house ruled past that. I'll make a note at the very end of this video. I'll talk about the house rules I've done to further enhance my appreciation of the game, but I found that the 12-point limitation, while I was playing with that, took away some of the fun of how many points you could actually get. It limited things in a way that took away a little bit of the fun. Some of the fun to me is trying to figure out how you can maximize things in different ways, and it just felt like a limiting constraint when you can almost always get towards those in enough areas. I wanted to remove that, and we did remove that, and it certainly enhanced the experience for me. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, tripling down on cards could be a little bit annoying in the sense that, again, that creativity aspect. You're like, okay, great, I'm going for mausoleums, let me try to get 3 nobles, and you can triple down on them. Now, you're not guaranteed to get 3 nobles, but again, it's not the hardest in the game if you can mitigate and manage, especially if you're going for different goals than other players. If 2 players are competing over nobles, it's a little harder, but if you're not, then it's fairly easy to get the cards you need to triple down on goals. And again, same idea, kind of removes that creativity. Again, see the end of this video for something that I have as a potential house rule there. And then additionally, like I said already, the theme. Like, the theme doesn't actually push me off, it just doesn't pull me in, but this theme may be something that is, it's weird. It is weird. Siliconvania is a weird theme. It's not an immediate, it feels like something out of Hotel Transylvania, but like a step removed from that, and that already was, you know, not the most obvious theme there. As far as final thoughts on Siliconvania, I really enjoyed this game. And I walked into it expecting to enjoy it, just because of the very nature of point optimization, tile placement, managing different goals. That is something I enjoy in games. But I also walked into it expecting to enjoy it, and then decide that other games in my collection do it better, and I don't need this. And I like it. I'm holding on to this one. I really enjoyed this one quite a bit, and I liked it more and more as I continued to dive into it. My first play was like, I like it, it's good, it's falling into the genre of these games that I enjoy so much, and then subsequent plays only further locked it in, as I think I walked into my second play a little bit worried that my first play would be fairly similar, that I wouldn't get yes, I enjoyed it, but would it hold up to the replayability of trying different approaches or different things? And so far it has. So far, I've really been enjoying this one, and I have little pet peeves around, you know, sorting tiles, sorting cards, graphical representation, some degree of fiddliness around the game that isn't, like, 100% cohesive. I feel like this could be better, but I still really enjoy it as it is. I have a lot of fun trying to manage the goals, trying to bid on those tiles. I think a big part of it for me is it does a good job of giving you that bidding and the tile selection while fitting into that multiple point variation thing of how you score everything, trying to make sure you place things down again. So I didn't really talk about these, and I realized they can have things like, 2 victory points per park adjacent to tiles that have a housed vampire. So ideally, placing this over here, next to this part might have been even smarter. You have 2 victory points per survival bearing tile adjacent to at least one other. So placing this next to this means that they're touching each other, and you're going to get points for that. And all the way down, each tile type scores for a different way as far as how you score points, and trying to build out your grid while you manage all these different things. I just really enjoy this one. For me, this is a 4 out of 5, another solid tile laying game that's going to be another solid tile laying game and point variable scoring game that will be added to my collection. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Calico. This game obviously has similar aspects to tile laying games. Calico is going to be the one that it felt most similar, as you start off feeling it can do so much, and then as you continue to play, you narrow down your selection and realize you're not going to get all the tiles you wanted and score the way you were trying to as you play through it, and that is a hurtful, sad thing that will happen to you, just like it will happen to you in Calico. And secondly, Luna Capital. Luna Capital from Devir Games, another tile laying game, not really tile laying game, more card laying game, as you try to gather all these different things. And that's another one that kind of was very reminiscent to me of Siliconvania, in the sense that from a pure graphical representation, Luna Capital is another one that I have kind of nitpicks around certain elements of the way things are done, while ultimately very much enjoying the game. As far as house rules, which is a timestamp that I usually don't have in these videos, but as far as house rules, the thing I've done, there's 2 things that I've done in order to further enhance my enjoyment and appreciation for Siliconvania. The first is something that's just a pure preference for me. It might get in the way of balance, but I find that I like it more. The second is a kind of a variant to the game that is something just a different way to experience the game. As far as the variant's actually easier to explain, so let's go ahead and do that. But the variant is you have these 7 different goals over here, these 7 different opportunities as far as how these score, and the variant is that you can only score each one once. So it's up to you to try to slowly play cards that will feed into which of the 5 things you're doing. Now that does mean you're going to get lower scores in the game, but it does force you to examine how you can optimize around a potential max of 12 points on 5 of the different 7 scoring goals. It makes some of the card play a little bit less interesting. That variant is not my preferred way to play the game. It's a way to play the game if you want to shift up your approach to it, and I do like that variant a little bit, but it's not my main way of playing the game. My main way of playing the game is simply removing the 12-point limit. Rather, what I do over here is instead of having a 12 points per card, I still do go with the no more than 3 cards of each type, but instead of having a 12 point per card limit, you simply can have any number of points per cards, and there's a few tiles that require a degree of balancing around that in order to make them competitive in the game. And specifically, 2 victory points per park adjacent to a tile, that's totally fine. 2 victory points per survival, that's fine. 2 victory points per innovation, that's fine. 3 victory points per neighbor tile adjacent to 3 different neighbor tiles, again, that works. And then 3 points per mausoleum, again, these all work. The 2 that currently inherently cap out of 12 are these 2. Blue and orange, they inherently, because of the way that they're phrased, cap out of 12, and so if you make the other ones not have a limit, you are making blue and orange a little less competitive. To that end, the way I tweak blue and orange is blue has 3 victory points per column with 4 different tile types, one of which must be a metro station. And if you slightly adjust it to 3 points per metro station in a column with at least 4 different tile types, you can actually structure so you can get 15, maximum 15 based on the city tiles, and that gives it that more freedom. So again, it gives you that more leeway, and now can bounce up to 15, and honestly getting 15 from any other tile type is hard, so it brings it back to competitive, meaning you don't make it about the column, you make it about the per metro station in a column with 4 different tile types, and inherently caps out. And then for over here, for the malls, it's 3 victory points per row with at least 3 house vampires and at least 1 mall. And the way we restructure that one is once you have done all 4 rows, you can score for multiple more. So if you have all 4 rows, you'll get your 12 points. And at that point, if you add another mall, you're simply getting another 3 points from it. So if you get the first 4 rows, you can add more malls and continue to score for them in the mall row over there. So those require slight rules adjustments. I cannot speak for balance. I can just speak for fun. Those elements have made me enjoy the game even more because it takes off some of the cap of how you score. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.